When we picture a nuclear disaster, we usually imagine something massive and loud. We expect blaring sirens, flashing alarms inside a high-tech control room, and an immediate, obvious signal to run. But the 1987 disaster in Goiânia, Brazil, didn't look like that at all. It began in complete silence, inside an empty, unguarded building, and looked exactly like a couple of guys scavenging for scrap metal. We build massive infrastructure to detect the hazards we understand, yet the deadliest modern threats are usually the ones that bypass our physical warning systems entirely. In the mid-1980s, Goiânia was a rapidly growing city of over 1 million people. Near the edge of town sat a half-demolished building that used to house a private cancer clinic. When the clinic relocated, the paperwork got tangled, and they left something behind. This photograph shows the medical machine left rotting in a back room. It featured a heavy metal casing suspended over a table. That casing was engineered as a shield for what was hidden deep inside, a tiny, highly lethal capsule of the radioactive isotope cesium-137. For 2 years it sat in the dust. Then 2 men, Roberto and Wagner, slipped into the unmonitored building. Looking for anything heavy they could sell for scrap, they managed to pry the machine loose and haul it away in a wheelbarrow. There were no guards, no alarms. A missing padlock and a forgotten piece of paperwork allowed an immense biological hazard to simply roll out the front door, triggering a catastrophic chain reaction. Over the next few days, sitting in a residential backyard, Roberto and Wagner slowly dismantled the heavy steel machine. It was hard work, fighting through layers of shielding designed specifically to keep people out. The metal was stamped with international radiation warning symbols, but those shapes meant nothing to men who had never been taught how to read them. When they finally crept through the final layer, they found the stainless steel capsule. Inside was a soft powder that did something mesmerizing in the dark. It emitted a pale electric blue glow. Believing the glowing substance might be a rare gemstone, they sold the capsule to a local junkyard owner for about $30 American. Thrilled with his purchase, DeVere brought the glowing prize right into his house. The visual beauty of the powder was a trap. It directly exploited human curiosity. Without knowing it, DeVere and his friends were willingly drawing a lethal hazard into the center of their lives. DeVere's living room quickly became the epicenter of a local phenomenon. Family members, friends, and neighbors dropped by to marvel at the strange blue light. The substance physically passed from person to person. People rubbed the powder on their skin. DeVere's 6-year-old niece, Lede, played with it and then ate a sandwich without washing her hands, accidentally consuming the material. Looking at this microscopic view, we can see exactly what ionizing radiation actually does. High-energy particles act like microscopic bullets, silently severing the double helix strands of human DNA. Crucially, this tissue destruction happens without triggering biological pain receptors. Because this specific medical sample was a soft powder rather than a solid metallic rod, it behaved like dust. It fractured easily, sticking inside the microscopic ridges of human hands, clothing, and food. Without any sensory feedback to tell people they were being hurt, there was nothing to stop the biological transmission. The radiation acted exactly like an invisible, highly infectious pathogen moving through a crowded room. Within days, the family began collapsing. Severe vomiting, dizziness, and strange blisters appeared. The initial doctors they visited were completely confused, diagnosing them with tropical diseases or strange allergic reactions. Desperate for answers, DeVere's wife, Maria Gabriela, acted on instinct. She scooped the glowing powder into a bag and carried it across the city on public transit, actively spreading the contagion through the enclosed space of a passenger bus. She brought the bag to a health clinic where a visiting physicist happened to have a Geiger counter. When he held the scanner near her package, the needle slammed completely to the right edge of the dial. Human biology was entirely blind to the danger. It took a piece of specialized technology to translate the threat. Only through the lens of a machine did the authorities realize they were dealing with an active radiological crisis. The realization sparked citywide panic. Officials converted a local stadium into an emergency triage center, ultimately screening over 100,000 terrified citizens to see if they carried the invisible dust. Sanitizing the city required extreme physical destruction. Teams in hazmat suits traced the contamination street by street, tearing down homes and manually excavating the infected pavement, shoveling chunks of asphalt into disposal barrels. The rubble, the soil, and the victims' personal belongings were locked inside sealed steel drums, branded with radiation symbols, and buried as permanent radioactive waste. The hazard originated from a capsule small enough to hold in one hand, yet containing its spread required an enormous industrial effort that leveled entire city blocks. The disaster killed 4 people, including 6-year-old Lede, whose tiny body absorbed a fatal dose of radiation from a simple sandwich. Around 250 others were left carrying permanent internal contamination. The geographic reach was terrifying. Active tracins of the glowing powder were found radiating out more than 100 kilometers away, carried unknowingly on the shoes and clothes of people who had simply passed through the city. The Goiânia incident proves exactly where our greatest vulnerabilities hide. We spend time worrying about the lethal physics of radioactive materials, but the actual disaster almost always begins with simple human negligence, waiting for our biological blindness to do the rest.